Um, Feel free to type questions as we're going along. At the conclusion of the webinar, I will check my chat box, see what type of questions I have, try to answer as many as I can. I would like to request, please keep questions related to today's topic. Okay, option A and option B presents itself in 2017. ISO 17025 makes its appearance. So why is this an option? Basically, it's depicted there. There's an increased need to ensure that laboratories today can operate a system that is both conforming to ISO 9001 as well as the 17025 standard. So an option A facility will comply with all the requirements specified in Section 8 of ISO 17025 2017. The assessment body, DJLA, if you're accredited with us, will assess the labs against the requirements as listed directly from the standard. Option B, if your organization is an option B organization, you'll maintain a quality system that is compliant with ISO 9001, 2015. As far as the level that the accreditation body needs to assess is currently placed in the hands of the accrediting body, and we'll discuss this here shortly as far as those of you all that is accredited by Perry Johnson Laboratory accreditation. What we're talking about here, option A and B, is right there. You see the table of contents, section 8, excuse me, management system requirements. So this is where the standard differentiates option A, B. So if you're in option A, you'll see it's pretty much business as usual. You're going to be assessed against those standards as they're written in 17025. Option B, we'll detail here in a little bit as far as how this affects you if you are an option B candidate. So when the standard was revised, the 2017 standard, it was organized to show relevance against ISO 9001, 2015. The standard accounts for laboratories that may be part of an organization adhering to a quality system based on the 9001 requirement. ISO 17025 2017 applies to these principles. The 2017 standards addresses the laboratory quality management system through option A or option B requirements for section 8, which is management system requirements. So looking at option A, the requirements of ISO 9001 that are relevant to the scope of laboratory activities that are covered by the management system were incorporated into the 2005 standard when it was revised in 2017. Hence, this is section 8 that was took into account the requirements of ISO 9001 when the 17025 standard was revised in 2017. Therefore, laboratories that comply with the rest of the standards, section 4 through 7 of 17025 2017, and implement option A will also operate generally in accordance with the principles of ISO 9001. So what this is telling you, if you're an option A candidate and you're not say you're not recognized through a registrar or certified to 9001. You're not going to be certified against 9001. However, you're going to be complying with that standard by complying with Section 8 of the management system requirements within 17025. So as far as the CABs, the laboratories that are accredited to 17025. If you're an option A facility, it's pretty much business as usual in maintaining compliance to 17025. If you're an option B candidate, you're using 9001 as a separate certification, but you're ensuring that the management also meet the technical requirements of ISO 17025, primarily the rest of the standard, section 4 through section 7. So section 8, 8.11 is depicted there. The laboratories shall establish documentation, implement and maintain a management system that is capable of supporting and demonstrating consistent achievement of the requirements of this document and ensuring the quality of laboratory results. In addition to meeting the requirements of 427, the laboratory shall implement a management system in accordance with option A and B. So this is section 8. So that's when we decide which option we're going. If it's option A, it's as far as the accrediting body, that system is assessed against the 17025 standard. If you're in option B, it's going to be looked at that those requirements are already being captured by the organization's compliance with ISO 9001, which is currently under 2015 is the latest revision of ISO 9001. So these are the sections we're referring to, i.e. Document control, control of records, improvement, corrective actions, internal audits, management reviews. These are the management system requirements. Option B meets the requirements of these through their quality management system that's written for compliance with 9001. And then the rest of the system against the system that's written against 17025. So Annex B, conformity with the management system which the laboratory operates to the requirements of 9001 does not in itself demonstrate the competence of the laboratory to produce valid results. This is accomplished through the rest of the standard 4 through 7. Hence 9001, it's a system, it's basically a quality management system, and however does not, as far as testing and calibration and sampling organization, it does not look at the technical competencies of the organization, i.e. the personnel, the facilities, uncertainty, traceability, all those other sections that the standard dives into prior to Section 8. In a nutshell, basically both options are intended to receive the same result in the performance of the laboratory management system in compliance with 4 through 7, and then Section 8 by dividing it up into option A and option B. Option B is important for labs that are already meeting ISO 9001 requirements for the management system. Simply requires a 9001 compliant management system that meets all the requirements of the new 17025. This should make it simpler for laboratories to manage and implement the two standards. It is much clearer that a laboratory can cover many of the management system requirements using 9001 compliant processes and document it with no needs for a separate set of documentation for 17025. So an example of this would be perhaps you're an organization. I've actually in the past worked for a calibration lab that was part of another organization which did manufacturing. Company, of course, was we were 9001. Calibration lab was 17025. Prior to this standard, the standards lab would be assessed separately against the requirements of 17025. In this particular instance today, the organization, of course, 4 through 7 would be business as usual. Section 8 would be captured during the 9001 registration process. So the question here comes to mind as an accrediting body when we get to Section 8. If you have an option D, you present it, and what we do require a PJLA in order to show you are in compliance with 9001, that you are actually registered to a recognized registered, just as our sister company there, Perry Johnson Registrars, who is a recognized that we do require that. I'm speaking on behalf of Perry Johnson Laboratory Accreditation. So we just don't actually give it a green flag. PJLA has written a guidance document for our assessors to follow. And basically the gist of how we assess Section 8 for an organization, let's say you are 9001 registered, is we sort of sample it. The main thing we want to assure as your accrediting body is that the laboratory activities are included in the 9001 activities, that perhaps your 9001 is just not encompassing, say, the manufacturing of the organization. We need to see the laboratory included in the internal audits, the management reviews, the corrective action protocols. So we do assess it. It's not just a green flag. We have a guidance document. It basically is a light sampling just to assure that the laboratory activities are included in the the 9001 quality management system activities. Okay, we're going to move on to the next part of the presentation, which is management system documentation. So if you look at the standard, if you have a copy in front of you, you notice all the requirements in Section A is labeled as Option A. Hence, that's saying that your quality system is going to be assessed directly against the standard that is written. As far as PJLA is concerned, if you're not currently registered through 9001, you're going to be considered a Option A candidate, and these systems are going to be assessed verbatim as they're written in the standard. So basically, in a nutshell, we're looking at a cross-reference here between Section 4.2 of the 17025 2005 standard in comparison to Section 8.2 of the 2017 standard. So what got depicted on the screen here is well, first of all, the first statement on here, and you'll see as we're going through here, requirements are softened in this area. Different time, 2005. Actually, the standard in 2005 was actually a couple years before 2005 that revision and that whole process was started. And what I'm trying to get at by making that preface is just the way things are today in general. And what I referring to is the electronic age. We're much more electronic than we were pre-2005. Quality management systems sometimes are driven purely by software these days. So just the way we're doing things are different. Hence, you have a lot more flexibility in complying with Section 8.2 than you did in 2005. But the one thing I want to try to drive is you'll see that we're going through here that many of the tools that was utilized in the 2005 standard, they can still be brought forth and utilized to comply with the 2017 requirements. However, they're not required. There's much more flexibility. So one thing, right off the bat, and the first time I heard this, it had me scratching my head when the 2017 standard was being revised is the fact, yes, it is true. There is no requirement per se to have a quality manual or the quality policy statement. You see the requirement directly there from 2005, 422, very prescriptive. The laboratory management shall have policies related to quality, including a quality policy system. And that was very prescriptive. If you recall your old quality policy statement under 2005, listing of items that had to capture, and that shall be defined in a quality manual. So we see a couple shalls there from 2005. in regard to the quality policy statement, and also having a quality manual. Jumping ahead to today, and those folks that are already transitioned or are looking to transition to the 2017 standard, 821, laboratory management shall establish, document, and maintain policies and objectives for the fulfillment of the purposes of this document, being the 17025 standard, and shall ensure that the policies and objectives are acknowledged and implemented at all levels of the laboratory organization. So why the change? Sort of like I resorted to earlier, greater flexibility currently in the guidelines for process procedures, documented information, and organizational responsibilities. This change results from the greater focus on information technologies with significantly modernization of the documents. The laboratory now can determine necessary degree of documentation. So basically today, and what I try to depict there, and literally, you can literally purchase, download, have an entire quality management system electronically. And a lot of organizations are moving further and further in that direction, hence the need to have, say, a specific quality manual with specific policies and procedures that have that shall attached to them in 2005 may not be needed in this electronic day. Excuse me, in this electronic age. So just a couple things. If you have a quality manual, just don't worry about it. If it's a tool, specifically, more importantly, if it's a tool that you generally feel that's important to your organization and you feel it's valuable, by all means, you can still maintain your accreditation, and that can be your go-to document for assuring policies and procedures are recognized and acknowledged throughout the organization. However, if you are currently have a 2005 quality system written, I do recommend that you, of course, review it and review it against the requirements of 2017. However, there's no requirement that it needs to be rewritten or aligned with the 2017 standard. Particularly right off the bat, down the road, you may want to do it over time, perhaps align it more so with the 2017 standard, but there is no requirement that states that this has to be done. A good quality manual acts as an important internal tool and can be used to assure policies and objectives are acknowledged and implemented at all levels of the laboratory organization on a consistent basis. So, if you can, if you're operating under 2005 or even in 2017, and you brought forth your quality management system and feel that it's a good vehicle for assuring this, got a plaque there. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. You have a quality manual, keep it, tailor it, make it better, improve on it. As you can still be used as stated there on the bottom under 821, that you are still required to ensure that policies and objectives are acknowledged and implemented at all levels. Hence, if you're doing an internal audit, you ask yourself that question, or during an assessment, how is that accomplished? Having a good quality manual that's accessible, either still in hard copy or even electronically, if that's a tool that can still be utilized by all means to answer that question that's sort of proposed there at the bottom of the screen. So again, I'm proposing the question, if you're transitioning and you're looking at this requirement, hey, you're not required to have a quality manual anymore in the 2017. Before you decide just to get rid of it, just ask yourself that question: has your organization utilized the quality manual as an important internal tool? And if so, the good news is that with the 2017 standard, you have more flexibility to convert the manual into something more useful. There are no requirements for the manual, therefore the specific requirements within its contents are no longer applicable to ISO 17025 2017. You have the freedom to do whatever you like, of course, without running into conflicts with the requirement of the 2017 standard or your own quality management system. So it's stated in 824, the 2017 standards, you have to still reference your quality management system to supporting documentation, and it can't be linked to network documents, policies, etc. This is specified in 824, which we'll dissect here in a little bit further, how that can be accomplished. 822, the policies and objectives, and we have a shall here, so a shall is a requirement, shall address the competence and impartiality and consistent operations of the laboratory. So if you've looked at 2017, if you've been listening on the PJLA webinars, one thing you know is there's a lot more emphasis on impartiality. 4.1, very first section of the standard. Has its own clauses, own requirements in 2017. So one thing with the 2017 standard, and before I go into this, if you're still using the quality policy statement, by all means, if you feel it's useful, if it's a good place for you to state your policies and objectives, you can keep it. But if you recall, 2005, you were required to have a quality policy statement, and there was a listing of items that it needed to include. If you still want to use that as a vehicle for communicating policies and objectives, go back, revisit it, see what's in there that you feel is important to carry forward to the 2017. However, I would assure that however you elect to handle it, that you include the impartiality and consistent operations of the laboratory within your quality policy statement or other sections of the manual. As you can see, there's a shall there under 822, so that has to be specified as a objective. So again, we have a very prescriptive requirement from the 2017. This is in regards to the quality management, the quality manual and the quality policy statement. So 422 in the 2005, if you go to 2005, you'll see the quality policy statement should be issued under authority of the top management, and it shall include at least the following. I'm not going to go into all those, but it was A through E. So currently the cross-reference to 2017 is captured in 822, which is basically concerned with the competence and impartiality and consistent operations of the laboratory. Okay, we do have a lot of, some of these requirements are written differently. However, they were captured in the 2017 standard. 823, laboratory management shall provide evidence of commitment to the development and implementation of the management system and continually improving its effectiveness. You can see the same requirements from 2005. So what are some things that management, it can be objective evidence presented in order to show compliance with Section 823. Things like top management, laboratory management, talking to customers, investing in resources, providing training opportunities, direct participation in the management review, assuring that effective internal audit program is implemented, and encouraging communication between departments, just to name a few. Okay, 824 are all documents Documentation, processes, systems, records related to the fulfillment of the requirements of this document shall be included in, referenced from, and linked to the management system. And same requirement from 2005, and this is very prescriptive, stating it's referring to the quality manual. Shall make include and make reference to supporting procedures, including technical procedures. This is required in 2005. You had to outline the structure of the documentation used in the management system. So what I try to depict there is typically with 2005, that's what I would see, a pyramid sort of that's depicted there with the quality manual being the top tier document. Today, 2017 gives you a lot more flexibility. As sort of depicted there with the QMS network, more electronic driven. That could be presented. However, if you think about it, look at how 824 is written. If you're a small organization, you're not will have the need to be as electronically savvy as perhaps a more larger complex organization. You can still utilize that pyramid. And when this question pops up in 824, you can still cross-reference. If this is the way you elect to go, you can still reference this structure that I have depicted on the bottom of the screen in front of you. Again, similar requirements worded differently. All personnel involved in laboratory activities shall have access to part of the management system documentation and related information that are applicable to their responsibilities. Similarly, in 2005, it was stated under 421, the system documentation shall be communicated to, understood by, available, and implemented by the appropriate personnel. Again, today, as opposed to when the 2005 standard, I don't see as many hard copies, binders, those sorts of things. Typically, 825, more going in line of what's depicted there. Access through your cell phone, your handheld device there, laptops through a server. Want to just bring forth here a requirement from 2005, and again, the prescriptive requirement concerning technical manager, quality manager, which we see here is 426, specifying that those roles and responsibilities shall be defined in the quality manual. 2017, we don't see that requirement anymore. We go to structural requirements, and basically a lot more flexibility there. If you still want to use your quality manager, technical manager, as implemented in the 2005 standard, you can still certainly utilize that structure. However, 2017, main concern is as far as compliance, is the lab has to identify management that has overall responsibility for the laboratory. So just some part and full thoughts on the quality manual. And of course, these are be construed as opinions. It may be better to keep and maintain your quality manual for better operations of lab and reference purposes. One thing, if you think about it, 17025 is a quality assurance / quality control for the lab, not a management system standard, regardless of what 9001 specifies. Quality manual may still be needed for labs. The quality manual may very well be useful as part of reference for policies and procedures. There's no harm in keeping your quality manual. Sooner or later, you can transform your policies and procedure in a more convenient way that may be electronic, graphic, software, etc. Laboratory management shall establish, document policies and objectives for the fulfillment of the purpose of 17025 and shall ensure that the policies, objectives are acknowledged and implemented at the levels of laboratory organizations. I'm repeating myself about going over this requirement, but just want to say that a quality manual can still be used for this purpose. All right. That will conclude this webinar. Bear with me as I try to get to the questions here. Okay, I hope everybody was able to hear me. We had some issues in starting the presentation, so that was I think we were maybe at least 5 minutes. So I have a lot of things about the sound. I'm unable to see when these quit. I do realize it might have even been 10 minutes into it. Again, restart. Instead of a quality manual, is there any document or procedure to maintain and manage quality management information and general instruction of the manual? Yeah, there are a lot less procedures. There are a couple shalls. I believe there's 15, as opposed to over, I believe it's 35 in 2005. Two that comes to mind is the if you look at the standard non-conforming calibration or testing, you shall have a procedure. Externally provided product and services, you shall have a procedure. Complaints come to mind. Basically, you shall have a process. There are requirements for having procedures, not as many in 2017. All right, again, box is filling up here with questions. Just give me an opportunity to read through these. So an impartiality documentation, the procedure or statement, evaluation not required, what are most common? I think you're asking me, perhaps when we're talking about the quality policy statement, that you need to establish impartiality as a policy within the laboratory. That's required. What I was trying to convey there is you're not required per se to have a quality policy statement. However, if you still want to use that as a go-to reference for, you still have to have quality, objectives and policies. If you still want to utilize that quality policy statement, that might be a good go-to to also include impartiality, competence, and consistent operations of the lab as defined in Section 8.2. Or it could be standalone policies by themselves. It's, however you elect to depict that. Can you give an example of acceptable maintenance and acknowledgement of the policies? I would say perhaps a training record. Initially, when you go from 2017 from 2005, you should train your individuals on the new standard. It could also be objective evidence presented by just point blank asking personnel of the lab, hey, what are your policies and objectives? If they're able to go to a quality manual, point to them. If it's posted on the wall, if they're able to go to their laptop, that would be objective evidence in assuring the acknowledgement of the of it with it throughout the organization. I believe that's what you're asking me. I hope I'm hitting the nail on the head there. Is a lab that's already certified by 9001 can later choose not to be re-audited for clauses 8, as they already have been audited by ISO certification body, and itself is accredited by MRA signature body. And I'm reading these questions exactly as I'm seeing them. So let me just preface, I'm speaking on behalf of PJLA now. If you're 9001, and as far as an assessment, it's at that point in time, and part of the pre-documentation requirements that our headquarters will send you to submit if you're an option B candidate is a copy of your certificate by the 9001 register. If you are if you have that in place, our assessors, we're not just going to give it a green flag, we're going to sample it. We have a guidance document that we utilize. Just so I share a little past experience here, and this was before 9,000, before option A and B. I did an assessment, and I mentioned you have organizations that I'm a calibration assessor, so I primarily go into those type of organizations. Calibration lab that was part of a manufacturing. The company as a whole was 9001. This was before option A and B. So I was went and of course I went to the internal audit. I did not see, as the company was assuming, because they already included it in 9001, that they didn't have to do anything different for 17025. When I looked at the internal audit, no, the requirements of 17025 was not subjected to the audit. I looked at the management review. I did not see laboratory personnel was not even represented. So when I first saw this option A, B, the requirement when 2017 came into play, that was the very first thing that came to my head. Was that past experience with a company that was already 9001 registered. So hence we do have a guidance document just to hopefully ward off that type of situation. If you are a 9001 organization, you want to assure that your laboratory activities are included, laboratory involvement in your management review, laboratory involvement with your internal audit. You want to assure that the requirements of ISO 9001 are being implemented there. Is lab, again, I'm reading these directly as I'm seeing them, and I'm having a little trouble having my screen catch up to the questions here. Is a lab manager can lead another department like quality assurance in parallel when we consider lab as part of a bigger organization? Absolutely, that can be done as long as there's no conflicts with regard to impartiality and any sort of conflicts of interest there. You're not tied down to having a separate lab manager, quality manager. You can you basically, like the 2017 standard, just have to identify an individual that has overall responsibility for lab operations. Wouldn't like to see sales, for example, having direct responsibility in labs. Could be different agendas there. So that's what I'm talking about. Impartiality for one. We want to ensure there's no relationships that would impact. What are the most common deficiencies you're finding with the new standard? Actually, if you go to our webinar, we actually did one a few months ago. I think we did sort of a top 10 list, common findings. and it actually escapes me right now. I know as an assessor, I can say things like that are new from 2017. Usually, for me, I can, speaking personally, perhaps the requirements with decision rules and capturing customer agreement, risk and opportunities. That's a new section. One thing, you look at bare bones minimum, a risk. You have to show that any impartiality of risk has been evaluated. You have to assure that with corrective action, that you have to look at any risk or opportunity that's presented itself. You also have to apply the risk level for non-conforming calibration work or testing work, pardon me. There are a few that come to mind on my end. As far as this section, I can honestly say I'm seeing most. I come across one organization so far that's gone totally electronic and did away with the quality manual and was able to show me very effectively how their QMS was driven electronically. Do we issue certificates for webinars? Currently, we do not. It's something that's been suggested in the past. If this is part of your training, and I've actually presented this during doing assessments when you have to determine competencies of folks, particularly those that are involved in internal audits. You can make your own internal records of attending these webinars. And by the way, I mentioned prior that before the beginning of the webinar, I hope everybody heard it, that this one hopefully is being recorded. All the slides, actually, you can download the individual slides of this one and past webinars that you're more than welcome to use. You can present them. You can present them to your staff. You can do part of your internal protocol. Can be these webinars or presenting the slides. I believe I have all the questions here. Let me just go through here one more time. UMIS clause 8.5, risk and opportunities. I'm not sure that's here's a question, but I'm not understanding what the question is. We did a webinar I think a couple months ago on section 8.5. Again, I have somebody requesting the recording here. Hopefully, our staff at PJ Alley headquarters in Michigan was able to capture this recording. That should be uploaded shortly. I will pass on the slides for them to upload. All right, I think hopefully I got everybody's question here. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. Before I sign off, I just want to again thank you all for signing in. I apologize for a little delay on getting started this morning, or excuse me, this afternoon. I'm on the East Coast. I'm coming from my home base outside of Richmond, Virginia, where I work primarily out of. Before we move on, I just want to let you know that next month's webinar has been scheduled Friday, July 24th, 1 o'clock. We're going to look at, we're going to capture two sections on this webinar in July. We're going to look at technical requirements here. We're going to look at, and these are of course related to the 2017 standard. We're going to look at section 6.3 on facilities. And we're going to look at section 6.4 on equipment. Appreciate everybody signing in. Hope everybody's keeping safe. And I look forward to presenting next month. Thank you very much.